of the only definitions that I've read that I think accurately describes all the nuances and the manifestations of what an addiction can be is Dr. Gabor Mate's quote. So for one, when I think of addiction, I think of it just as a representation of an internal struggle, of a human experience or a human struggle. And then it can manifest in many different ways. In our culture, we tend to think about it manifesting an arbitrarily short list of certain substances or behaviors. But I love the way Dr. Gabor Mate talks about it. He says that addiction is manifested in any behavior that a person craves, finds temporary relief or pleasure in, suffers a negative consequence as a result of, and yet has difficulty giving it up. I love this because it's just as true for an individual who's got a very severe opioid addiction or an alcohol addiction. And it can just as accurately describe somebody who is maybe disengaging from their life. And maybe there's too much going on. So instead of turning to something else, or instead of working on the problems to try to find solutions, they find themselves numbing out or escaping on a Netflix binge or social media, or distracting themselves with something that might be more socially acceptable, workaholism, shopaholism. There's a lot of other manifestations, but it all comes back to a projection of some kind of internal void or some kind of internal pain that somebody's trying to seek an external solution to. The other thing that he shares that I think is extremely helpful, he says, we often ask why the addiction. When we see somebody that's struggling with a behavior, whether it's alcohol or a recreational drug, or whether it's a more behavioral mechanism, when we see somebody struggling with it, we often ask why the addiction. So when we ask that question, it can be very hard to feel like we have a comprehensive understanding and that we have a solution to the answer. Why does so-and-so continue to drink after they've had a number of DWIs? Why does this individual continue to use drugs or engage in a certain behavior after they've had all these negative implications? When we try to answer that question, it might not feel like it leads us in the right direction. Instead, he says we should always ask the question, why the pain? So if addiction is manifest in any behavior that provides a temporary relief, then the question is, relief from what? What is somebody trying to relieve? When we look at that military transition, one of the reasons I talk about this topic so much, I feel in our society we have this unfair kind of conceptual understanding that if a veteran or a service member is struggling with addiction or they're struggling with mental health, then it must stem from something that they experienced on a battlefield, or maybe a military sexual trauma or some kind of training mishap. And while sadly that is true for a lot of veterans, it's not true for most veterans. Yet most veterans struggle with that transition from the mental and emotional implications that it has. So regardless of what a veteran experienced while they're in the service, they go from a very strong sense of connection, sense of safety, a sense of belonging, to feelings of being different, isolating, not being welcome, not being seen as they are, or that they don't belong. That sense of authenticity can often go from a very sense of secure identity, when you have a strong sense of authenticity, to individuals wearing these masks and showing up for acceptance. And then that profound sense of meaning can be the thing that provides them the capacity to endure some of the most difficult challenges, whether it's long workouts, long deployments, moving around every couple of years. Losing that sense of meaning can lead an individual to that greater sense of pain, and now their meaning might be found in just simply trying to avoid or numb that pain.